In the first video of this series, we saw our hero, Park Sejun, who is a farmer in the tower. But his profession is unique, as is his story. When, 10 years ago, the towers appeared in 100 cities throughout the world, no one had any idea about them. But when people came out of them, they told everyone that they could hunt monsters and gain riches inside the tower. Everyone set out to buy tickets that allowed ordinary people to go into the towers. Sejun was also saving money for this, but he was too far away from the required amount. But suddenly, after the vanishing, a portal that had sucked in the first generation of the awakened appeared behind him. Sejun is excited, but the portal does not take him and starts shrinking. So Sejun jumps inside the portal to enter the tower, and he finds himself in a strange cave that is not on the first floor of the tower. He had some vegetables with him, and Sejun decided to sow them to grow his food and survive. But soon, a rare event called Blue Moon occurs, and Sejun spots a dragon that is actually the manager of the tower who came to survey him. Sejun fainted, but when he woke up, he found his green onion plants had grown to ridiculous size. Soon, he made friends with a couple of rabbits who started living with him and helping him out with farming activities. For some time, the green onion leaves were their only food. Moreover, they could be used as fabric and firewood. But after discovering fire, Sejun used it to hunt fish from a pond in his cave. The rabbits give birth to babies, and at the same time, the tomato plants start to flower. But after a horrible blue moon night passes and Sejun almost gets caught by a monster, they find a surprise. A tomato was ripe now, but it was nothing ordinary. It was a blue tomato containing the energy of the blue moon. And just as Sejun harvests it, the manager of the tower contacts him and awakens him. But his class is neither a warrior nor a magician. It is the tower farmer class. Even though Sejun is frustrated and wants to throw it all away, he realizes that the farm was not just his but also that of his rabbit friends. He accepts being a farmer, and the manager has a quest for Sejun right away. It asks Sejun to give it the blue tomato in exchange for a job-related skill, but the penalty for refusing the quest is death. Sejun is shocked when he reads that the penalty for refusing the quest is death. In front of him, the window was open, and Sejun could still not believe that something so extreme was happening. He accuses the admin of blackmailing him and using the name of a quest to justify his actions. Sejun tells the admin that if he wants it, he should ask for it properly. If he played dirty games like this and made it look like he was giving Sejun options, that would not be good. Sejun is a bit relieved after venting his anger, but he says that how worthless was his life to the admin if it would kill him just for not giving up one tomato. But even then, the penalty of death cannot make him any braver. He gives up and offers the blue tomato to the administrator, who asks to spare his life. The tomato in Sejun's hands vanishes, and he receives the message that he has completed the quest. The next window has the quest reward, and Sejun is excited to get the reward. He knew it was a job-related skill, but since he was focusing solely on the death penalty, he forgot about it for a moment. Sejun flatters the tower manager and calls him generous. Then he decides to check what kind of skill he has and opens the quest reward. The reward is the skill sowing at level 1. It slightly increases the probability of germination when a seed is planted. Sejun does not understand how to react, but he sure is disappointed. But then he consoles himself by saying that since his job was as a tower farmer, he could not expect much from the reward anyway. He goes to the dark parts of the cave with a torch, and a fish jumps out towards the flame. Sejun uses a club made of green onion stems and leaves to hit it towards the land. The fish dies, and Sejun learns that it was a piranha. He had killed a piranha, and the information window tells him that he got 2 experience points for it. This was the 5th fish Sejun had caught, and with that, he now had 10 experience points. After awakening as a farmer, Sejun was able to collect experience points, and he caught several piranhas every day for several days and reached level 2. He wants to catch more of them, but it is clearly a bad idea. He thinks he should not kill a living thing without reason. Besides, he got valuable protein from the fish. If he killed all of them and their population went extinct, he would not be able to eat them again. Sejun roasts the fish and calls his friends to eat, and the baby rabbits are much more hungry than their parents. They run towards Sejun, who is their human uncle, and he gives them fish and onion leaves. They had grown a little and started eating a lot more compared to before. Sejun asks them to leave some food for their mom and dad as well. There was another benefit Sejun got from awakening. He could get information about the rabbits. He gives them their share, and the rabbits happily take it. They were farmer white rabbits, and Sejun had a few ideas about how they ended up with him. They were a type of monster he had never heard of outside the tower. Based on their name, Sejun realizes that they specialize in farming and not fighting. He thinks that this must be the reason they were not known. The rabbits start flirting as they eat, and as Sejun watches them, he wonders what happened to them. But he assumes that they must have lost their farms, and after wandering for some time, they found this cave in him. He wants to know if the rabbits have a hometown to return to, but he can't understand them, and neither can they understand him beyond basic farming terminology. Sejun tells this to the husband rabbit, saying that he wishes they could understand each other, but he does not understand human speech either and is confused. But now that they are done eating, Sejun says that they should head back to the farm. Today is an important day for all of them, and the husband rabbit is also excited. They reach the farm to find the cherry tomatoes perfectly ripe. Sejun is amazed to see them. They were even better than the tomatoes he brought with him. The rabbits are also pleased to see the red tomato fruits. Sejun gets sentimental as he says that now is the time to harvest them. They had worked so hard to grow them. They had harvested one after the blue moon, but it didn't count. Sejun is nervous as he goes to harvest the first tomato. His hand is trembling, and the rabbits are watching him anxiously too. But Sejun picks up a fruit, which easily separates from the branch. He exclaims that this was his first cherry tomato, and it had ripened so well. The tomatoes bring more good news with them. Sejun sees information windows telling him that he had harvested a well-ripe magical cherry tomato, and he would receive 10 experience points for it. Sejun is surprised to learn that these tomatoes were also magical, just like the blue tomato. He reads their information and finds that, when consumed, this tomato decomposes 10 grams of fat and increases 0.1 MP for 10 minutes. The MP effect could be stacked up to 10 times, and the maximum time limit for that would be 1 hour. Below this information is Sejun's name as the cultivator of the tomato, and it is also mentioned that it was an E-grade item whose shelf life was 30 days. Sejun is impressed that even though the effect of one tomato was quite small, if 10 of them were eaten together, they could boost MP by 1. He wonders if other tomatoes are also the same and sets out to harvest them. He harvests a tomato, and it is also a ripe magical cherry tomato, as is the next one after that. But then he harvests an unripe magical cherry tomato and only gets 7 experience points for it. Sejun is taken aback that he made a mistake, but he still got 7 experience points. And when he harvested an unripe fruit, it was not an item anymore, it was back to being a normal tomato. Sejun now understands that he must take care to harvest only the well-ripe fruits to get them as an item. It is harder than he thinks, but Sejun keeps it up, and his level increases. He is already level 4, and Sejun thinks he has harvested enough crops for the day. He takes a tomato and says that he should have a taste, but the rabbits are stomping their feet aggressively, and Sejun looks at them. They are angry, and he apologizes. Sejun offers the tomatoes to them. They had achieved this together, so they should reap the rewards together too. But the husband rabbit is furious, even as he picks up a tomato. Sejun says that they should celebrate the successful harvest, and everyone should eat. And when Sejun eats the tomato, his mind is blown. He thinks that he is lying on soft green grass, looking up at the clear night sky. And then suddenly, a flare flies into the sky and explodes, a firework. Sejun gets up and looks at it with his mouth open. The fresh scent of grass and the sweet and sour taste of the tomato mix with that scent. Sejun feels that this feeling is similar to the fireworks in the middle of a summer festival. Sejun sheds a tear of joy as he remembers the summer and feels it in the tomato. The wife rabbit asks her husband if he knew what Sejun was saying, and he has no idea. The rabbits take the remaining tomatoes and store them in a makeshift storage facility. They cover the tomatoes with onion leaves, and Sejun is lying down and watching them. He thinks that the rabbit kids are now big enough to help their parents. He is ready to sleep on mattresses and with an eye mask, both made of onion leaves. Sejun says that they were indeed the children of farmers' rabbits. Sejun yawns and says that he should go to sleep now as he is feeling sleepy. And he is sure that when he wakes up tomorrow, another wonderful day will greet him. Sejun lays down and immediately begins to snore. But then a quest is issued for him. He must offer 100 magical cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. The reward was a job-related skill, and the penalty was the same as before, death. But Sejun is really asleep and does not notice the window. But then it suddenly starts ringing loudly like an alarm, and Sejun is forcibly woken up. He offers 100 tomatoes to the manager in frustration, and the manager is satisfied. It gives Sejun the reward for the quest. Sejun says that the manager was forcing him to do things, and he better give him something more useful this time. As he opens the quest reward, Sejun finds that he has received the skill harvest at level 1. It enabled him to obtain harvested crops in optimum condition even if they were slightly overripe or underripe. Sejun is disappointed and asks why he needs a harvesting skill. That is what he thought initially, but it was much more useful than the previous skill. Sejun admits to this as he harvests tomatoes with his husband's rabbit. Whenever he harvests slightly overripe or underripe tomatoes, an effect activates, and they are perfected to their optimum condition. As he does that, the proficiency of the harvest skill increases along with Sejun's experience points. He says that since he did not have to wait for the cherry tomatoes to ripen, it was easier and faster for him. They have finished harvesting, and Sejun tells the husband rabbit that they should take the rest of the harvest home. But just then, he gets another quest. Sejun was also anticipating it, but he was not expecting the quest to have no reward. Sejun calls the manager a thief for giving no reward. But since his last reward helped him significantly, Sejun can give him at least that much. As he offered the tomatoes to the manager, the husband was shocked. But Sejun did not know that he was entering a vicious cycle. The manager issued the quests again and again, but they kept increasing in demand. It was getting greedier without an end in sight. The required number of tomatoes keeps on increasing, and finally the manager reaches new heights of shamelessness. The new quest is triggered, and Sejun has to offer 500 tomatoes to the manager for no reward. And yet, the penalty for refusing is death. Sejun is really flipped now, and he clearly refuses to comply, and the manager of the tower is surprised. This was yet another entry in Sejun's diary about getting lost in the tower. This was the first time he stood up to the greedy manager. But after calmly refusing, Sejun throws a tantrum. He says that the manager had already taken hundreds of tomatoes. The manager had already taken hundreds of tomatoes. He needed to eat too, and so did the rabbits. But the tower manager replies that it was the farmer's problem and not his. He tells Sejun to stop protesting and give him the cherry tomatoes. But this irritates Sejun even more. He says that he worked hard for days and suffered a lot to harvest those tomatoes. The tower master still insists that Sejun's job was as simple as sowing the seeds. It asks him not to overreact over something that is not a big deal. And this is where the tower manager crosses the line. Sejun says that he is not giving anything to the manager because he doesn't want to. The tower manager is flustered, but Sejun ignores his messages. He keeps on harvesting onions as the manager asks if he really wants to refuse. It says that Sejun could die, but the latter is busy cooking fish. And even when it emphasizes death, Sejun replies that he was not going to give his crops to someone who didn't value his hard work. But the tower manager says that it was Sejun's job, and since the manager was his superior, he should listen to his orders. Sejun replies that this was the reason he was not giving the tomatoes. The manager forcibly made him do this and did not even appreciate his efforts. Moreover, the compensation for the exploitation was also too low. And since it was the manager of the tower, this proved that it was a bad employer. Sejun's words and the hurt in his eyes shocked the tower manager. It had not realized this before and tried to apologize. But Sejun is eating the tomatoes while teasing them, and the manager gets angry. It tells Sejun that it was angry because he ate the tomatoes himself. The manager threatens to kill Sejun on the spot if he doesn't complete the request. But Sejun acts like the manager is no big deal and gives him just 5 tomatoes. He says that he will give the rest later since he needs them to feed the kids too.